Good evening and welcome to Face to Face. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Niresh Eliatambi. Well, US President Donald Trump certainly gave us a strong reminder that in this world, it's not a good idea to depend on one market, whatever your goods may be, whatever your exports may be. So, diversification of your market is always the best thing to do. And for Sri Lanka, the choice is very simple indeed. We have right next door, across the Park Strait, just something like 26 miles away, 1.4 billion people in a single market. That's India. So right now, of course, many Sri Lankan companies are exploring the opportunities in India and vice versa. There are Indian companies exploring opportunities of investment and market in Sri Lanka. And to discuss all this, I have with me a gentleman who knows a lot about India, Sri Lanka and business. He is Mr. Santosh Menon, founder president of the Lanka India Business Association. Good evening and welcome, Santosh. Good to have you on the show.
Good evening, Niresh, and thanks to the Face to Face program for having me.
Right. So to give our viewers a little bit more detail about Santosh, he has spent the last 20 years in Sri Lanka, although he is originally a native of Mumbai. And his career has been in advertising, so he is very well known in Colombo's advertising and marketing circles indeed. Right, so Santosh, let's talk about this new association, the Lanka India Business Association, which I think is a timely initiative. And I think it was formed about 3 months ago. Would you like to tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. So I think when we started Lanka India Business Association, we did that to foster closer business links between Indian businesses and Sri Lankan businesses. But if you look at the Lanka India Business Association name, unlike some of the other associations which start with India first, we've got L in the beginning, which is Lanka India Business Association. So this puts Lanka first. So to that extent, our thinking really was, how can we actually facilitate the entry of Sri Lankan businesses to exploit the massive Indian market? That was how this whole association started. A few of us got together, predominantly Sri Lankans of great repute. We have Mr. Prakash Shafter, who's in our governing council. We have Dilshan Rodrigo, who's the CEO of Union Bank. We have Samanthi Dias, who's a legal professional. We have Nevindri Premaratne, who's a IT professional. We have Ashik, who's actually an ex-president of Slascom. You have Sandeep Hole, who's the CEO of Ultratech. And we all got together and said, let's make this happen.
All very well-known names indeed in Sri Lankan business circles.
Yes, absolutely. And that was the intent, because this is a company by guarantee, which means the intent is not to create a dividend and share the profits. The intent is actually for us to take time beyond our bread and butter work that we do, the main work that we do to earn our livelihoods, and spend quality time creating this facilitating association, which can actually make Sri Lankans feel comfortable about exploring and exploiting the Indian market.
Right. So now, how does this work? Let's say that there are Sri Lankan entrepreneurs who want to explore the Indian market, and they come to you. How does it work? What can you do for them? Can you link them with Indian businesses or Indian chambers perhaps? Can you offer them advice? What about taxation, all those regulations, all of that?
In fact, Niresh, we actually are going one step beyond. suppose an individual Sri Lankan company decides that they want access to India and they have the ambition and the intent of exploring beyond Sri Lanka. First thing you have to do is you have to become a member. Okay. As soon as you become a member, we will give you access to our advisory team who sits in Mumbai.
Right.
So we have a team of advisors, and this is not a chamber. This is an advisory team whose core business is to get businesses into India. So we have a strategist there who actually understands various markets, has got 2-3 decades of experience in bringing companies into India, finding the right partners, helping you understand which states to look at. Then we have another gentleman who's an expert on IT. And today, in today's world, irrespective of which business you're in, IT is a very important component. Then we have a member who's a legal professional who will help you to actually navigate the legal system within India. I mean, there are many things that needs to happen. Sometimes you might say, I have a product, I just need to find a partner who can take it and supply it to the Indian market. In which case, the advisors will help you do that. Somebody recently came and said, we want to set up subsidiary operations in India. So we are helping him do that. We are helping him identify the states within India that he needs to look at.
That's one of the most important factors, isn't it? Because a lot of Sri Lankans don't quite understand the diversity of states within India. There are so many, and each is different from the other.
Absolutely, Nilesh. In fact, this is the key reason we set this up. I have a lot of friends in Sri Lanka. When I ask them, why don't you look at the Indian opportunity? They normally tell me, buddy, it's too huge. We don't know where to start. Or they say, we've heard bad stories about being in India. We don't want to go to India. Or they will say that, you Indians are too competitive. I don't think we can succeed in business, doing business in India. But the fundamental thing is, mostly people don't look at India seriously because they don't even know where to start. And I think what we do as an association and our attempt as an association is to demystify India for you. Because like you rightly said, India is actually, in a sense, 28 plus 8 union territories, almost 36 different states. Each one is a market in its own right. In fact, as we further have conversations, I'll give you a context to how big some of these markets are and how I'm thinking in the context of Sri Lanka on which markets within India to really look at and focus on as far as Sri Lankan businesses go. And that can happen as we move forward in the conversation. But there's a lot of learning we've already had in 3 months with having conversations between our members and our advisory boards. And the kind of rich conversation that's happening means that there are more and more Sri Lankan companies starting to think about India and say, hey, maybe we might just be able to do this.
Right. Could you tell us a little bit about the history of Sri Lankan and Indian trade? I mean, it goes back thousands of years.
Yes.
But what about the modern era?
Yeah, absolutely. So, see, I'll tell you, there are a couple of things. One is, of course, the fact that historically there's been a lot of incredible trade. I mean, when I go towards Negombo, there's a place called Kochikade.
Yes.
And Kochikade was a place where shopkeepers from Kochi put up their kades. Right? That's the name, Kochikade. Right. Yeah. When I go to Kochi, in the center of Kochi, I find a hotel called Colombo Hotel. Right in the center of Colombo. Of course, I went up to him and said, it should be Negombo Hotel and not Colombo Hotel, because that's where I see the Kochi connection. But the fact is, there is a huge history of trade between India and Sri Lanka. But I have to say that in the modern era, the economic potential that exists for trade between India and Sri Lanka, to my mind, is still vastly unexploited. I mean, it's a $5 billion trade, out of which I think about 800 million goes from Sri Lanka to India and 4.2 billion comes from India to Sri Lanka. And I will take the bull by the horns here. Very often the conversation is, hey, we did an FTA in 2000 and then you guys there's such a huge trade deficit, there's an imbalance. But if you look deeper into the numbers, Neeraj, you'll find something very interesting. If you look at the entire list of the free trade agreement in terms of the goods that can actually be exported from India to Sri Lanka or exported from Sri Lanka to India, The 800 million, the amount that goes from Sri Lanka to India, is using 60% of that FTA.
Right.
Whereas if you look at the 4.2 billion that comes from India to Sri Lanka, only 5% of the FTA is actually being used. Which means the rest of the things that are getting imported into Sri Lanka are not getting imported by virtue of a free trade agreement or because somebody says, hey, this is an attractive proposition, but because a lot of things don't get manufactured in Sri Lanka.
Right.
Like essential medicines, obviously petroleum comes from India. Very often nowadays a lot of onions and things are also coming from India. So when you go out there and the government puts out a tender for purchasing at a competitive price at the best quality, Indian products normally come out on top, and then you end up importing all the essentials from India, and therefore your import bill from India is higher. It is not that India is benefiting more from the FTA. Sri Lanka is benefiting more from the FTA.
Right.
But because of the size difference between the two countries and because of the kind of imports that you need to do here, there is this imbalance between the trade. However, if you look at a 10-year context in trade between India and Sri Lanka, it's not like as if the trade has doubled or quadrupled. It has by and large remained in the same area. And that to me is a bit of a shame.
It's troubling, isn't it?
It is absolutely, because given the context of where Sri Lanka is today and the fact that there's this absolutely thriving neighbor in your north, and the fact that we haven't been able to get sufficient amount of investments from India is something that we need to really think about carefully. And this, I can tell you a lot of interesting statistics about it. So, I would leave you to question me on it, and I will proceed and enlighten you on a lot of very, very interesting things in terms of the opportunity that is India for Sri Lanka and what my thoughts are in terms of how we should exploit it.
Now, looking at the geography of it again, when you talk about this 5 billion trade, which parts of India are we looking at mostly? Is it Kerala and Tamil Nadu, or is it does it extend way beyond that?
So I'll give you a different way of looking at this. I will look at it more in terms of the opportunity, not the 5 billion, because the 5 billion it goes to various parts of India.
Right.
And I don't think there's a pattern there which actually gives you a context to the opportunity in India. I would rather look at it the other way. So, I was doing some number crunching for our association. So if you look at India as a place with 36 states, which is 28 plus 8, right? I did an analysis to figure out how many of those states have a population about 25 million, just to benchmark the Sri Lankan population. It came to 18 states. Okay. Then I looked at how many of them have a GDP bigger than Sri Lanka's, which is about 100 billion US dollars. So the number got further narrowed down to 14 states. Okay. Then I said, let's try to find out the rate of growth, which is the highest states, which has the highest rate of growth, economic growth, and then which is the states with the highest per capita GDP. And I put a number of about $4,000 as the filter, and 6 states came up. Okay. Gujarat, Haryana up in the north and west, then Telangana, Karnataka, Kerala and Tamil Nadu. Now these are the 6 states where you have about 125 million middle class. This is not the population. This is the middle class. This is the middle class which is now desperate to spend. And there is about 75 million of these are between the age group of 17 and 29. A young, growing population with a lot of money wanting to explore different things. And I think this is the kind of targeting we need to do. Because if you look at a Sri Lankan perspective, our access to the southern market, southern Indian market is, like you said, it's a stone throw away. I mean, 600 kilometers from Kochi to Colombo, 900 kilometers from Colombo to Chennai, similar to Bangalore, 1,000 kilometers to Hyderabad. You take many of the Indian cities, getting to any of these southern markets is far more difficult than it is from Colombo. So the opportunity for Sri Lanka with the Indian states and the fact that there is this booming young middle class which is hungry for high quality products is there for the taking. I feel we in Sri Lanka need to open our minds and be ready to take that opportunity on and make the most of it.
Now, looking back at a little bit of history, my grandparents used to tell me how they would just go across to India for the weekend. They'd get into the train at the Fort Railway Station with sandwiches or whatever, and they'd get off at Talemana at the pier. So it's one train ride.
Yes.
And then the ferry, very short trip, and they land at Rameswaram, and they take the train from there to Chennai or wherever, spend the weekend and come back. So it was that simple. Of course, you needed a passport. Fine, everyone's got a passport these days.
Correct.
And that was it. So for many years, because of the civil war in Sri Lanka, the ferry service didn't operate.
Yes.
But now we have ferry services, intermittently operating when the weather allows. So the links are getting stronger, aren't they?
Yes. And I do think this is an important element to consider. Because at the end of the day, while irrespective of whether Sri Lanka has many export products or not to send to the Indian market, having a physical connection with India and quick access to the southern market of India could pay tremendous dividends to the Sri Lankan economy in the medium to long run. And the reason I'm saying that is, recently an agency from Japan contacted me and they wanted to meet me, and I said, actually we are Lanka India Business Association. So they said, no, we know what you're doing. We've seen your website. We want to talk to you. So when I met them, they said, you know what? We are putting money behind investing in promoting Sri Lanka India trade. So I said, why would Japan do that? Why would Japan be interested in a Sri Lanka India trade? They said, because we see the Indian economy moving at the speed it is. We see Sri Lanka as being a great place for us to come and put money in the future for access to the southern Indian market. But for that, the trade connections between Sri Lanka and India needs to be extremely strong. And I thought to myself, wow, the fact, Japanese are obviously very forward looking and they think far ahead, I suppose, in terms of how to look at their country and look at the opportunities. If we can also have that same vision in terms of seeing this opportunity and saying, hey, in whatever way we can connect to the Indian market and have quick access to the southern Indian market, we should have those connections, because then we can provide a huge opportunity of being a hub from which various economies can actually access various parts of the Indian market faster than they can from parts of India.
Now, when it comes to islands such as Sri Lanka, being located just off a big landmass, a big market, is actually it's not a big deal at all. It's not, one can swim from Rameswaram to Talemana, and many people used to do that actually and it still happens. You get these record-breaking youngsters, and then when you look around the world, you have the UK versus the European continent, and there the gap is much wider than the 26 miles of the Pork Strait.
Yes.
And then I think it's actually less than 26 miles. And then you have Singapore and Malaysia.
Yes.
And then in the north of Europe, actually, you have Denmark and Sweden and so on. Very easily connectable, ferries and so on. Of course, many of those have land bridges now. We don't have a land bridge yet with India. But it's not such a daunting distance, is it?
It's not. But the moot question is it time for the land bridge? And I said this recently somewhere else. I copped a little bit of assault on social media for it, but I continue to believe in it. My view is, if you do a land bridge, it will take you 12 years to make it happen. 12 years from today, India will be the economy everyone wants to be close to. It's for us to make use of that opportunity.
Absolutely. But unfortunately, such matters, one has to rely on the political leadership of both countries.
Correct.
And there are, of course, a lot of other factors which politicians have to take into consideration, which businessmen would not want taken into consideration. So yes, whether one wants a land bridge or not is
but I think the larger point which you're making, which is having ability to connect and getting easy access to the southern Indian market and to the growing Indian market, is key to providing a degree of economic security for Sri Lanka as it moves forward. In my view.
Absolutely. I think it was the colonial brainwashing which taught us that our trading links should be with the UK and Europe rather than right across, to India and beyond to Pakistan, Bangladesh, Thailand, Southeast Asia, which are far closer than traveling halfway across the world.
See, the reality of it is, if you take India's history or if you take Sri Lanka's history, the money was in the West. And obviously, trade goes from the place, where a product is made to the place where you can get the best price for it and make the maximum income. But that center of gravity is slowly shifting. The West continues to be rich, but I think we are now reaching a place where Asia is becoming rich too. And I think, given the fact that many important decisions were taken based on the fact that the West has the money, similar important decisions should now be taken knowing that India and South Asia is on the rise and that this is where the money is. And I'll give you one example, Niresh. Years ago, there was a big initiative taken here to develop the garment industry, primarily because the West gave us a quota and we saw the opportunity of creating a value-added product which would actually earn the country significant amounts in FDI, in foreign exchange actually.
Right.
And reality is, even to this day, the industry plays a very important role.
Absolutely.
Today, you have to now look at India and say, what is it that India might have a need for, which Sri Lanka can fulfill, which probably can give us an equivalent impetus in terms of bringing in foreign exchange into the country.
Right. So I'd like to go a little bit deeper into that very question.
Sure.
What is it that India needs that Sri Lanka could supply? But first we need to take a short commercial break. I am in conversation with Mr. Santosh Menon, who is the founder president of the Lanka India Business Association. Don't go away, we'll be right back after this.
Chamatkara Ratriya, an enchanting night awaits. A tribute to timeless legends, a celebration of melodies that echo through generations. A heartfelt homage to two icons who defined the soundscape of a nation. Victor Ratnayaka and Priya Suryasena. Their songs shaped our stories. Their voices touched our souls.
Join us for a night of unforgettable performances by Nalin Pereira, Samita Mudunkotua, Sanka Dine, Raini Charuka, Nadimal Pereira, Lakshita Suryasena, Irushi Suryasena,
Chamatkar Rathriya, where legends live again. Musical direction by the brilliant Mahesh Nilipitiya. Every note will carry the soul of a legend. Mark your calendars for the 2nd of August from 6:30 p.m. onwards at the Muses College Auditorium. Tickets via theticketsministry.com. Don't miss the most heart-touching musical event of the year. Chamatkar Rathriya.
Welcome back to Face to Face. I am with my guest tonight, Mr. Santosh Menon, founder president of the Lanka India Business Association, and we are talking, of course, about trade and investment opportunities between Sri Lanka and India. Now, Santosh, we were looking at what is it in this giant Indian market? Where is the niche? What are the products or types of products that this Indian market desires? And I think you mentioned 18 to 27-year-olds, was it? Which is the largest growing market. And what is it that Sri Lanka could provide? And Sri Lanka, of course, has a variety of products, but we need to produce something which is not necessarily available in India.
I have 3 ways to look at this answer. One, for me, the lowest hanging fruit is something that exists here, which is your country, this pristine, beautiful island called Sri Lanka.
Which we in Sri Lanka don't appreciate until we go out and then we realize this is indeed paradise.
Yes. We need to bring the right Indian consumer into paradise. You know, we keep looking at this number of 450,000 Indians coming here and saying, hey, that's our single largest tourist arrival, and we feel excited, and when that number goes up by 5-10%. But in reality, over 30 million tourists are traveling, Indians are traveling around the world every year, and many of these guys have lots of money. How do we bring in the high value Indian tourist into Sri Lanka? For me, that's one great opportunity. It's a low hanging fruit because already I think our tourism industry is growing at a good pace. Things are looking up. Now we need to market our product to the right target consumer in India and draw the right audience. So to me, that's one answer straight away.
Right.
So, when we look at products, it's not just about taking products which we manufacture here to India. You have an existing product called brand Sri Lanka. We need to market it right and get the Indian consumer with money. This I'm repeating. The Indian consumer with money. I mean, the Indians will come anyway because they see Sri Lanka as being an affordable place in the neighborhood. What you want is somebody who comes here for luxury experiences and is willing to spend big bucks for it. I do believe in my mind, after being in this country for long, that those experiences exist. It's just about making sure that those experiences are brought to life in India through a right marketing communications campaign, through the right targeting for the right consumer and bringing them. So that's one direct opportunity. The second opportunity, in the way I see it, is the fact that these 6 markets which I mentioned to you earlier, when you do an analysis of what are the products that they currently need, which they're not getting fulfilled, there are many products which come up on the list, some of which are actually getting produced in Sri Lanka. So for example, if I were to take 3-4 products, I know for a fact that based on the data, the car manufacturers in Chennai and Telangana are looking for rubber products. Have we attempted to take rubber to TN? Have we attempted to take rubber to Telangana? I don't know if the current FTA agreement hinders it or hampers it. I'm not aware of the details, but my point is, based on the data, I know that rubber is something that's much sought after in these two markets. Fact of the matter also is that with this new tariff thing happening in the US, besides apparel, rubber also is under some degree of threat, is what my understanding is. Is there an opportunity to take the rubber to India? That's some question that I have to ask straight away. Second thing is, I also see a significant need for pepper and cardamom. Again, I'm given to understand that in Sri Lanka, the pepper and cardamom industry is kind of having a problem. Not enough farming interest, and there are some issues that the industry is having. But to my mind, if the country is actually looking for export opportunities, and these are the areas where actually the opportunities exist, we must find a viable solution to reinvigorate those industries to provide for the larger market. It's a bit like the way we set up the garment industry. You did what you needed to do to set it up. It didn't exist here.
Absolutely.
But when you realize there's an opportunity for revenue from a foreign country, somebody took the bull by the horns and did what needed to be done, and got it done. Can we do the same thing? Can we do the same thing for pepper and cardamom if there is an issue? The other big opportunity that seems to come in India, and I do believe that the product can actually be farmed and created here, is pulses. Huge demand, especially in these 6 markets, for red gram. Again, my understanding is pulses can be grown in Sri Lanka. There are parts of Sri Lanka where pulses can be grown, but there are challenges that the industry is facing here for a variety of reasons. But I think those are all opportunities that Sri Lanka has, and a focused approach on looking at India can actually microscopically bring out some of these opportunities for you. The big future opportunity for me is in the renewable energy space. India is energy hungry, and Sri Lanka is blessed by nature with wind on one side and the sun, blessing the country with its grace throughout the year. If we are smart, we will start looking at how we can create the energy not only for our own needs, which we need, but to be able to export to India and make money out of that as a tremendous source of foreign revenue and foreign currency in the future. So these are some of the things, but obviously as we have further conversations and go deeper, I'm sure more opportunities and more things that can be done here will emerge. There is of course the apparel industry, and there is of course tea. I still do believe that whatever product Sri Lanka has are all high quality products. Whether it's a tea or whether it's apparel, even in my mind the tourism experience is a high quality experience. Sri Lankan products are high quality. Some people might look at it and say, oh, the pricing is not competitive because of the cost. But in reality, Indians are looking for good quality premium products. As long as you're able to sell them the value by creating the, aspiration for the premiumness, we shouldn't have a problem.
Absolutely. So the opportunities are there, and it's a matter of figuring out what the market desires and what can we produce.
Yes.
And start up industries if we need to, like the apparel. Right. Now, what about Indian interest in Sri Lanka? We've seen quite a few Indian delegations. There was I think recently the delegation from the Indian industry was here, and we've seen some interest in investing here. How real is this interest?
Well, I think it's a significant interest. to see, if you really look at the Indian business tapestry, not only are Indians making money in India, but they're taking money out of the country. If you look at the last 10 years, Indians have invested close to $200 billion around the world. That's not small money. In the last 1 year, Indians have invested $30 billion around the world. So Indians are looking for opportunities outside of India to make money. Indians are looking for investment opportunities around the world. The sad fact is that if you look at a 10-year context, Indian investment has probably been a few $billion, but far below the potential in terms of what it could have been. But like I said, the interest exists. Businessmen are keen and looking at opportunities. But I think we need to be able to provide businessmen a vision and a conviction and a predictability that their investments will result in them yielding profits, will make them feel good about being in this country, and give them a sense of predictability that there will be a rule of law for the businesses, and things will move forward in the way it should, from a business perspective.
So Sri Lanka needs to basically get its act straight and show that it is a good place to invest. It's a place where the money would be safe and there'd be a good return on investment.
Correct.
Right. What about now? Recently we've seen a lot of interest from the Indian government in Sri Lanka, obviously, because during these last few crisis years, I think the two countries grew much closer, especially under Prime Minister Narendra Modi's leadership from the Indian side. And recently we saw a significant investment in our Colombo dockyard, which the controlling interest had been by a Japanese company for many years, and they were selling their share, and this was picked up by an Indian government entity, which is a significant investment, isn't it?
Yes. I think, like you said, to my mind, the 2022 economic crisis, when India stood by Sri Lanka and did what it needed to do to support Sri Lanka at its time of need, is a turning point in the history of our two countries and the relationship between the two countries. I think in a very unequivocal way, India demonstrated that it will stand by Sri Lanka at its time of need, and therefore behave like a friend who's there for them at their time of need. I think there was a point made at that time that India and Sri Lanka are civilizational twins. So the conversation moved from big brother, small brother to one of equals. And I think all of these are not just empty words. These have been, demonstrated with actual action on the ground in terms of specific initiatives done to support Sri Lanka during that crisis. Yes, I think there are such investments as you refer to which are coming, but I think that's an Indian government initiative, and I'm not honestly very aware of all of the details of it. It's still an evolving news, but at the end of the day, I do think that we need to start also attracting a lot more private. We need to also encourage our Sri Lankan businessmen who have got operations here to start looking beyond the shores of the 25 million Sri Lanka into the 14-15 markets within India, which actually are hungry for good quality products, so that you can actually take your product and service to India and build capacities in Sri Lanka to service it, which can actually have a direct impact on the livelihoods of people in Sri Lanka. At the end of the day, if the young people in Sri Lanka with the entrepreneurial zeal can make a lot out of the Indian economic opportunity, it will result in tremendous dividends for the future of Sri Lanka in terms of its economic status.
Now, when you look at the stability of the relationship between the two countries, it's been a rocky one over the decades. And of course, when it became clear that the NPP, the party, was going to win the election, there was a lot of hand-wringing that, well, what will this do to the relationship with India, because the JVP, which is the main constituent of the NPP, had opposed the Indo-Lanka Accord and so on, which was, of course, nearly 4 decades ago. However, that history was there, confusing the issue. But once President AKD assumed office, he took it all in stride, and so did Prime Minister Narendra Modi. They basically ignored all of the past political baggage, and they seem to have acted as businessmen, business leaders rather, leading the two countries ever closer. I mean, that's great news, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I think both the leaders have many things in common. I think
they certainly seem to be getting along with each other very well.
Yeah, I mean, great chemistry when they came here, and they spent a lot of quality time together. Fact of the matter is, both come from real local backgrounds, their respective countries, and both have the trust and the mandates from the people, and both seem to have a great sense of pragmatism. The only ism, if I might use the word ism, because lots of things are associated with isms, the only two isms that these two leaders seem to focus on is peopleism and pragmatism. And so, since you have so many things in common, I think, and also there's a recognition amongst the leaders that for India, Sri Lanka is an extremely important country, so close to its neighborhood, and for Sri Lanka, India has always been a long time partner in terms of many things that it does. So there is a recognition that there is a lot of mutual benefits that can be gained from continuing to make sure that the relationship thrives.
Right. Now, Santosh, let's talk a little bit about the strength of the growth of the Indian economy, which over the past several years has continued to grow very strongly, and although a slowdown was somewhat expected, I think even the last quarter was excellent. I mean, somewhere over 7%. Of course, with the Trump tariffs hitting the worldwide scenario, one can expect every economy to slow down. The World Bank and the World Trade Organization are all predicting and projecting slowdowns, but India seems to be particularly strong and able to weather such storms.
I think the fundamental difference is the ambition, the intent, and the energy in India, right from the top across all states in terms of the leaders, is tremendous. There is goal setting, there is action, and there is a genuine need. I think there is a overall political consensus also amongst the people that economic growth is not a negotiable thing. I mean, I'm going to tell you the story. I was in Kerala 3-4 months ago, ostensibly a communist state, and I went there for an Invest in Kerala summit, and I was astounded to find the central government leader, the chief minister, and the opposition leader in the same podium, saying the same things and shaking hands, not for the screen, but in reality sharing the commitment to make Kerala a $1 trillion economy by 2048. It's currently at $160 billion US dollars. So you're talking about a 10 times kind of a growth in the next 25 years. So even a state like Kerala, which is supposedly a communist rule state, has that ambition and that intent. So I think there is this ambition of making India a developed country by 2048, 2047 actually, which is the I believe some year related to the independence of India, 100 years after India's independence. So the intent really is to drive India towards that. So given that context, I think the entrepreneurial zeal in India is definitely at its peak, and every person, every individual who's a businessman is actually starting to look at the future and think about how they're going to grow.
There's also, I mean, we've been analyzing the reactions of countries and governments to the threats of Donald Trump. He threatens tariffs, he threatens larger tariffs and so on. And many countries react. Some are afraid, others just try to negotiate. Others, such as Brazil, straight out tell him they're not accepting his nonsense, but they'll take that, they'll get tariffed at 50%, and so on. But India has been very pragmatic about this whole thing. You don't see Narendra Modi coming out on television and making dramatic speeches about it. You don't see any of that. You know that they are negotiating and having discussions behind the scenes, but there's nothing that's out there overly dramatic.
Yeah, I think there's a certain confidence. India is not a small economy anymore. I mean, let's face it, India has become the fourth largest economy in the world, overtaken Japan. At one point, Japan was considered one of the strongest economies in the world, overtaking Germany very soon. So I don't think India can be trifled with. But equally, I don't think, India wants to take a,
confrontational.
Yeah, that makes no sense, because the reality is that the world is one global market and we need everybody to come along with us for our growth. But I think it has to be done on the terms that are in India's interests. It cannot be foisted on India by somebody else's interests. So I think obviously we are very sharp, bright people working in all our, in the MEA, of course, and in the people who take these decisions. So I think we are in good hands.
Absolutely. And I'm afraid that we are out of time. My thanks to Santosh Menon, founder president of the Lanka India Business Association, LIBA. Thank you very much for being with us, with our audience this evening. And thank you to you at home for watching. Don't go away, because the news is coming up next, as always. Have a great evening.
TV1. TV for life.
Deshabandhu found guilty by Parliamentary Committee. Removal proposal to be tabled in Parliament soon. Supreme Court suspends appeal court order on Gota Go Gummer case. Ex-LTTE member arrested with a T-56 rifle in Kiribatgoda. Grenade cache found in Settikulam. Cabinet approves bill to limit privileges of former presidents. Did a former minister take fuel commissions? Energy minister responds. Conspiracy behind elephant killings, says environment minister. Trade unions call sick leave over proposed electricity bill. Debate